Hey there, welcome back to the Menopause Method. My name is Cam Allen, and I'm your tour guide for everything menopause. Have you heard of this holiday called National Quitters Day? Did you know that the second Friday in January is called National Quitters Day? I did not know this. Now, I did know that by February, 80% of people quit on their New Year's resolutions, but I really had no idea that as soon as January, the second Friday, we actually have a holiday called National Quitters Day. We're going to talk about why we quit and how to set better goals so you don't quit and you can actually achieve the health and the fitness and the life that you dream of. One of the reasons I think we fail is we have this all or nothing mindset. We have to be perfect, and perfection is keeping us stuck. And if one little thing goes off the rails, if you eat one little thing that you're not supposed to, air quotes, or you miss one workout, then you're off the rails and you're like, forget it, I'm just going to go crazy. That all or nothing perfectionist mindset is really keeping us stuck. I think it's more helpful and more healthy to think of life as a journey. And when you mess up, because you're going to mess up, you're human, to take the moment to reflect and understand why that happened and what could you do differently next time. I also feel like we set goals that fail because they're based on external motivation, such as your clothes fitting better, or maybe it's your scale saying a certain number. But here's the thing. Have you ever set a goal like that and reached the goal? Did it equal health? Did it equal happiness? Or were you still searching for something? I find that when we set goals from internal things, like from reflection and because we want to move away from something that's frustrating in our life, then actually they have more sticking power. It's something internal. You've done the work, you've looked inside and decided that you're going to change. This next one might surprise you. I think goal setting in January is simply setting goals in the wrong season. Winter is not the season for growth. I've always been a fan of seasons, and right now we're in winter. We have a foot of snow on the ground in Cincinnati right now. It is a time to be inward and move slower and be more reflective. It is not a time of explosive growth. Actually, I think if we had resolutions in like March or April, maybe we would be more successful. In the spring, the earth is waking up, things are starting to grow and bloom. That's when we want to grow and bloom. So I like to use winter as a time to reflect and go inward and really decide, what do I want in my life and how am I going to get it? So think of it this way. In January, February, and March, we're actually planting seeds, little consistent seeds that will actually equal your spring bloom. So just be patient with it. I do think there are better ways to set goals, and let's talk about that. I think if we tune into our emotions, we go inward and we decide what's really frustrating us or what's really emotional for us, those are actually clues to where we can grow and change. And I'll use my hysterectomy as an example. So at the age of 49, I had a hysterectomy. About 4 months later, I tried to go back to the gym. I remember doing my first deadlift and peeing my pants. And I was like, my daughter was with me and I was like, what just happened? Like that had only happened one other time. And it was a really heavy front squat. So like I kind of understood that, but this was not a heavy deadlift and I peed my pants. That was just one example. There were other workouts I did and I would literally end up on the couch for days exhausted. I knew the way I exercised before my hysterectomy was not going to work anymore after my hysterectomy. Now, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't like one workout and one set of deadlifts. It was a process for sure for me to put down that exercise identity of who I said I was and learn how to exercise in a new way. I was so frustrated that I actually went back to school. And now here we are 5 years later, almost 6 years later. 6 years later, this business, this podcast is a result of that frustration. And now I've worked with hundreds of women, helping them figure out their fitness and health in menopause based on my frustration. Next up, I'm a huge fan of setting intentions over resolutions. I feel like intentions are more gentle and they show you the path on how to get there. They're fluent, they're flexible, they require self-reflection, whereas resolutions are really rigid, and it goes back to that all or nothing concept that we started the show with. So I want you to think of a time that you maybe set a nutrition goal. I'm going to eat more vegetables. I'm not going to eat bread, all the crazy things that you say to yourself. But then maybe you decided to eat a cookie, or maybe you had a date with some crackers. And because you went off your strict protocol, you just said F it and you just went for it and you went off the rails. That's happened. That's happened to me. I have another way to look at it. Instead, we're going to mess up. That's just part of it. It's part of the journey. Instead, see yourself making that decision. Ask yourself, go inside and understand what was the trigger for that decision. Did you decide to eat that because you were eating your emotions? Maybe you were lonely or frustrated or angry. So pausing and understanding what was the trigger, and then seeing yourself respond to that trigger. That way you can understand yourself better, which is what I believe menopause is about. It's a gateway back to yourself. And you can understand that the very next decision you can make based on the person that you're working to be. Make your decisions from that future self of yourself. I also think it's really important to be gentle with yourself. As I mentioned, I really believe that our health is a journey. There is no deadline. There is no finish line. Have you ever reached a goal? Did that equal happiness? Or was there something else you were chasing? So health is really a journey. There's no timeline, finish line, deadline, no line at all. It's a progress. And we are going to make mistakes because we are human. So being gentle with yourself is a good way to approach it. And I also want you to know that change is really hard. Your brain has two goals in life: to keep you alive and to keep you reproducing. Well, we're in menopause, so we'll take the reproduction part off the table here. But it wants to keep you alive, and it doesn't want you to change. Even if the new habit that you're working on establishing this year is actually a healthy change, your brain doesn't want to change. It's very comfortable to stay exactly where it is. So anytime you can show your brain that it's safe to change and they're actually doing the thing, it's amazing. And you avoid all that negative self-brain chatter. You can't do this. You'll always fail. You're never going to do XYZ, all that stuff that we say to ourselves. What happens is that chatter over and over actually becomes our beliefs. And so our brain doesn't want to change. Our job is to show our brain, hey, look, I did this thing. I'm showing up. I did my workout. I drank my water, whatever your goals are, and show your brain that it is safe to change. One of my favorite ways to do that, like to trick your brain, is to habit stack your new habit next to a habit that you have well established. It's kind of like a sneaky way to get them in. And then I want you to acknowledge your wins. Make sure to revisit your intentions, slow down enough and reflect, and show your brain that you are doing it. Also, you have a chance to go back and modify any of your intentions as you move through it. If you need help setting intentions for 2025, hit me up on Instagram at heymama_cam. I love chatting with you. There's nothing I want more for you than to have a happy and healthy 2025. If you're finding this show helpful, please hit the subscribe button and share it with your best friend. And I'll see you next week.